I was promised the first available Boston to New York fourth cook job. But for a while, I worked there in the Dover Street yard, helping to load food requisitions onto the trains. Fourth cook, I knew, was just a glorified name for dishwasher. But it wouldn't be my first time, and just as long as I traveled where I wanted, it didn't make a difference to me. Temporarily, though, they put me on the Colonial that ran to Washington, D.C. The kitchen crew, headed by a West Indian chef named Duke Vaughn, worked with almost unbelievable efficiency in the cramped quarters. Against the sound of the train clacking along, the waiters were jabbering the customers' orders, the cooks operated like machines, and 500 miles of dirty pots and dishes and silverware rattled back to me. Then, on the overnight layover, I naturally went sightseeing in downtown Washington. I was astounded to find in the nation's capital, just a few blocks from Capitol Hill, thousands of Negroes living worse than any I'd seen in the poorest sections of Roxbury, in dirt floor shacks along unspeakably filthy lanes with names like Pig Alley and Goat Alley. I had seen a lot, but never such a dense concentration of stumblebums, pushers, hookers, crap shooters, even little kids running around at midnight begging for pennies, half naked and barefooted. Some of the railroad cooks and waiters had told me to be very careful because muggings, knifings, and robberies went on every night among these Negroes just a few blocks from the White House. In another 2 years, I could have given them all lessons, but that night I was mesmerized. This world was where I belonged. On that night, I had started on my way to becoming a Harlemite. I was going to become one of the most depraved, parasitical hustlers among New York's 8 million people, 4 million of whom work and the other 4 million who live off them. I couldn't quite believe all that I'd heard and seen that night as I lugged my shoulder strap, sandwich box, and heavy 5-gallon aluminum coffee pot up and down the aisles of the Yankee Clipper back to Boston. I wish that Ella and I had been on better terms so that I could try to describe to her how I felt. But I did talk to Shorty, urging him at least to go see the Big Apple Music World. Sophia listened to me too. She told me that I'd never be satisfied anywhere but New York. She was right. In one night, New York, Harlem, just about narcoticized me. That sandwich man I'd replaced had little chance of getting his job back. I went bellowing up and down those train aisles. I sold sandwiches, coffee, candy, cake, and ice cream as fast as the railroad's commissary department could supply them. It didn't take me a week to learn that all you had to do was give white people a show and they'd buy anything offered them. It was like popping your shoe shine rag. The dining car waiters and Pullman porters knew it too, and they faked their Uncle Tommy to get bigger tips. We were in that world of Negroes who are both servants and psychologists, aware that white people are so obsessed with their own importance that they will pay liberally, even dearly, for the impression of being catered to and entertained. Off the train, I'd go through that Grand Central Station afternoon rush hour crowd, and many white people simply stopped in their tracks to watch me pass. The drape and cut of a zoot suit showed to the best advantage if you were tall, and I was over 6 feet. My conch was fire red. I was really a clown, but my ignorance made me think I was sharp. My knob-toed, orange-colored, kick-up shoes were nothing but Florsheims, the ghetto Cadillac of shoes in those days. Some shoe companies made these ridiculous styles for sale only in the black ghettos where ignorant Negroes like me would pay the big-name price for something that we associated with being rich. And then, between Small's Paradise and the Braddock Hotel and other places, as much as my $20 or $25 pay would allow, I drank liquor, smoked marijuana, painted the Big Apple red with increasing numbers of friends, and finally, in Miss Fisher's rooming house, I got a few hours of sleep before the Yankee Clipper rolled again. Many times since, I've thought about it and what it really meant. In one sense, we were huddled in there, bonded together in seeking security and warmth and comfort from each other, and we didn't know it. All of us who might have probed space or cured cancer or built industries were instead black victims of the white man's American social system. Anyway, before long, my nickname happened. Just when, I don't know, but people knowing I was from Michigan would ask me what city. Since most New Yorkers had never heard of Lansing, I would name Detroit. Gradually, I began to be called Detroit Red, and it stuck. But the Middle Harlem Narcotics Force found so many ways to harass me that I had to change my area. I moved down to Lower Harlem around 110th Street. There were many more reefer smokers around there, but these were a cheaper type. This was the worst of the ghetto, the poorest people, the ones who in every ghetto keep themselves narcotized to keep from having to face their miserable existence. I didn't last long down there either. I lost too much of my product. After I sold to some of those reefer smokers who had the instinct of animals, they followed me and learned my pattern. They would dart out of a doorway, I'd drop my stuff, and they would be on it like a chicken on corn. When you become an animal, a vulture in the ghetto, as I had become, you enter a world of animals and vultures. It becomes truly the survival of only the fittest. There I was, back in Harlem streets, among all the rest of the hustlers. I couldn't sell reefers. The dope squad detectives were too familiar with me. I was a true hustler, uneducated, unskilled in anything honorable, and I considered myself nervy and cunning enough to live by my wits, exploiting any prey that presented itself. I would risk just about anything. Right now, in every big city ghetto, tens of thousands of yesterday's and today's school dropouts are keeping body and soul together by some form of hustling in the same way I did. And they inevitably move into more and more, worse and worse, illegality and immorality. Full time hustlers never can relax to appraise what they're doing and where they are bound. As in the case in any jungle, the hustler's every waking hours lived with both the practical and the subconscious knowledge that if he ever relaxes, if he ever slows down, the other hungry, restless foxes, ferrets, wolves, and vultures out there with him won't hesitate to make him their prey. During the next 6 to 8 months, I pulled my first robberies and stick ups, only small ones, always in another nearby cities. And I got away. As the pros did, I too would key myself to pull these jobs by my first use of hard dope. I began with Sammy's recommendation of sniffing cocaine. We had a picture taken by the club photographer that night. The three of us were sitting close together. That was the last time I ever saw Lady Day. She's dead. Dope and heartbreak stopped that heart as big as a barn and that sound and style that no one successfully copies. Lady Day sang with the soul of Negroes from the centuries of sorrow and oppression. What a shame that proud, fine black woman never lived where the true greatness of the black race was appreciated. I want to say before I go on that I've never previously told anyone my sordid past in detail. I haven't done it now to sound as though I might be proud of how bad, how evil I was. But people are always speculating, why am I as I am? To understand that of any person, his whole life from birth must be reviewed. All of our experiences fuse into our personality. Everything that ever happened to us is an ingredient. Today, when everything that I do has an urgency, I would not spend 1 hour in the preparation of a book which had the ambition to perhaps titillate some readers. But I am spending many hours because the full story is the best way that I know to have it seen and understood, that I had sunk to the very bottom of the American white man's society when, soon now, in prison, I found Allah and the religion of Islam, and it completely transformed my life.